So when looking at a movie like Watchmen and then looking at a movie like this, it's not the time that you were annoyed about, it was the storyline?
No, it was just the progression. I mean, this movie is not for the average filmgoer. I mean, if you're just a guy who's looking to crash on the couch, enjoy like a couple hours of a movie, you're not going to be pleased with this. You're going to be held on, strapped to your seat through a bunch of arbitrary shots that are basically overlapping.
Well, I disagree with that being arbitrary, but I will agree by you saying this isn't for everyone. This is a very artistic movie, but, I mean, it's not like you...
It takes a lot of commitment. I mean, you really have to sit through it for anything to happen.
Reminds me of my review with Man in the White Hat, and he was talking about the same thing with Scarface. How he had to sit through the whole middle of the movie before something really good happened. Except you think there is nothing good in this movie. I'm assuming?
There's not a lot of it that's good. There's like one fight scene, and it's not nearly as enthralling. It doesn't exactly capture your attention.
It caught my attention.
There are plenty of scenes involving Pocahontas slowly being degenerated into the Western standards, and those are kind of boring. Well, frankly, I didn't really exactly get impacted by these scenes.
I don't know. I thought they were very good. I thought they really showed how the society of the colony worked at the time. How she was initially this...
Well, that's the thing. It's a history book in motion.
Yeah.
And
I guess
so.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, maybe, by that. The history book in motion. Though there are some inaccuracies. But overall,
that's just nitpicking, though. The inaccuracies, it's not like...
The thing is, though, what I really was astonished by was the authenticity, like how real it looked and how real it felt. I actually researched it later and found out Terrence Malick went to great lengths to achieve as much authenticity as can be expected.
But the whole small things that he missed, that's just nitpicking. I mean,
yeah, I guess.
Sure, if Ridley Scott directed The New World, you can guarantee there'd be a lot more natives dying and there'd be a lot more muskets.
For the record, ladies and gentlemen, Rorschach III has always been sore at me about my opinion of Gladiator.
I saw the review. I disagreed with it. It was a very good movie. You just had to accept the fact that it was a Ridley Scott film and it probably wasn't going to be very authentic. Overall,
I gave my points in that movie, so I'm going to leave that to the side. But now back to this movie. I thought there was a lot to be noted in the movie. Yes, there were problems with it. One thing I found a problem with was the voice levels, the volume. I found it very hard to hear what they were saying.
Always put on subtitles.
Yes, but that was a small price to pay, actually. I find that a smaller price to pay a lot because like the subtitles, I don't seem to mind subtitles as much as some other people that I know do.
I don't know. I just think they could have filmed this in a different way, as in...
Well, they could have changed the volume pitch a little bit to make it more comprehensible, but what they were saying and the attitudes they expressed on the camera, that requires a lot of talent.
It was all just a bunch of monologues, though.
Yeah, but it requires physical talent to portray the emotions physically. And then coupled with that, they've got to give their lines, of which there are several, and very meaningful ones, and they've got to combine that with the performance they're giving on screen.
You know what? I'll say that they acted well, but this wasn't an outstanding performance. I can say that there are films that eclipse this, but this isn't exactly bottom of the barrel.
That's an interesting jump up from what you originally said at the beginning of the review.
Well, it's not the worst. I mean, for me, the absolute worst would be Super Mario Bros. The movie.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake of Bob Hoskins' career.
Wow. Just Bob Hoskins? I think there was
Dennis Hopper as well.
Oh, Dennis Hopper. Comparing it to bad movies or good movies, I don't know. It's kind of a class on its own. There's something about it that separates it from most of the other movies that I've seen in my life. It
kind of falls into the category of that art movie that you bought because you thought it might look pretty, but ultimately it's only good for about 2.5 hours. This doesn't really have much of a lasting impression.
Really? I think it did. I think it did have a lasting impression, personally.
I mean, when I was 12 years old and I walked out on this, and just this absolutely almost silent credits, save for the few chirpings of animals from North America, Virginia, the only thing that was going through my head was, what is this? What was this? For about 5 minutes. And then
well, I don't know. I thought the ending was very powerful, though, considering what had happened in the movie. Because like you said, John Smith abandons Pocahontas for reasons given in the movie, and then she meets up with John Rolfe instead, marries him, has a kid with him, hoping that she'll love him later on, and then she finds out that John Smith is alive, and so she and John Smith have this one moment together, first time they've seen each other in a long time, when she's in England, and the atmosphere of those scenes, and the whole, just the emotion used in those scenes between Bale, Farrell, and the female lead, they were all really well placed, and I thought the scenes were well directed and well acted.
Many of the scenes felt like they were coming from a silent film, because a lot
of they were talking a lot.
Well,
there was a lot being said
between Farrell and, excuse me, apologies to the female lead, because I'm sorry, your name is very hard to pronounce, but the chemistry between them wasn't based on dialogue. It was based on physical contact and subtle expressions.
But there was also dialogue given to us about how they felt to each other, and they do talk to each other about what had happened. Like, John Smith tells Pocahontas, "I thought that it was a dream what we had, but maybe that was the only truth." And so it just shows you that, and with other stuff that they're talking about, all this little piece of dialogue just shows you how much each one has moved on past the other and is looking back and wondering, did I make the right decision? And that's why it's a big choice that Pocahontas ends up making between trying to reconnect with Smith or staying with Rolfe.
Yeah, but the end game of the film isn't exactly going to be implanted in your brain for a long time.
To be honest, I think it will. I think this was a movie that remained... Well, that left a lasting impression on me.
People will watch this and think, hey, this was pretty decent. It has some stuff going for it, but ultimately, I was kind of bored. And in the end, you're not really going to remember it.
Okay. So that's your overall review of it? That's your overall opinion? Okay. Well,
pretty bad, but it's got stuff going for it.
Somewhere, you mean?
Yeah, somehow it's
you'd rather someone
in an
else
art museum.
You'd rather someone else had directed it, basically.
No, I'd rather that it was put in an art museum. That's where it was meant to be.
Yeah, okay. Well,
for 2.5 hours, 24 hours a day.
Well, I personally think the movie was very good. I thought the performances carried the movie along. I thought the movie felt really authentic. I thought Terrence Malick did a great job. It was one of the most beautiful films I've seen in a while, and ultimately I give it a positive review. So that's basically it then. I give it a positive review, you give it a negative review on this year?
Well, I wouldn't exactly say completely negative, but I would say bored, as in, you know what, look for the canoe out of the theater. I mean, if you're an average Joe, you're really not going to be able to have the patience. You gotta commit.
Well, you never know. Anyway, that's Jimmy Steller and
Rorschach the Third.
Signing off.
See you later, guys.